Hey romance fans, you're watching Romance Rewind, a talk show on the Reader Seeks Romance channel that chats with romance authors about the romance movies from the 80s, 90s, and aughts that inspired their careers and novels. I am Liz Donatelli, and my co-host is Tiffany Current. Our guest is debut romance novelist JEANNA LOUISE SKINNER, author of magical romance fantasy, The Book Boyfriend. Today, we are discussing the movie that inspired JEANNA's romance debut, the 1987 rom-com, Mannequin. Welcome, JEANNA.
Yay! Hi, JEANNA.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, Tiffany. Hi, Liz. Thank you.
It is a pleasure. So, your debut fantasy romance is inspired by the 1987 classic fantasy rom-com Mannequin.
Yeah.
In what ways is The Book Boyfriend similar to the movie Mannequin?
Okay, so I have to start with a little bit of background first about the inspiration for the book, which for the title mostly, which came from a conversation with a friend over 10 years ago, like a long time ago. I was having this conversation with a friend. We were talking about our favorite books, our favorite romance novels. And she was lamenting the fact that all the real men in her life just couldn't live up to her favorite book boyfriend. She just said, why can't my book boyfriends be real? Like, why can't they come to life?
Yeah.
And
I like that.
it stuck with me. And around about that same time, I was on a rewatch, one of my many rewatches of Mannequin, because it's one of my favorite movies. And it really sort of like the two things kind of collided, the Mannequin rewatch, the time travel aspect of that, and then the comment that she'd made. And I thought, yeah, the Mannequin is about a woman from the past, isn't she? She's like an Egyptian princess, isn't she? And she doesn't want to get married. She wants to like live, and she wants to have like this kind of life, and she doesn't want to settle for everything, and she just wills herself into the future. I mean, it's all very quite quick and easy what happens to it. I mean, we will like sort of like just gloss over like some of the magic involved there.
Right.
But I thought it would be really nice to have instead of the heroine fast forwarding into the future, because I love that. I mean, I know a lot of time travel romance and fantasy novels have the main protagonist going back into the past,
right?
But I love the idea of like somebody from the past coming into the future and then being the big fish out of water. And I love that. I mean, that trope is one of my catnips, and I don't feel like we see it enough. So I just love the idea of the book boyfriend coming to life, first of all, literally like popping up out of the page. Like, wow, yeah, oh my god, he's real.
In your book too as well, The Book Boyfriend, you actually use the same character names too.
Yeah,
So
I mean, that was that was just a little bit of like, I don't know, just me being a little bit indulgent, I suppose, on my part, because I love them in the movie. And I remember when I first watched it, I just remember being absolutely in love with Kim Cattrall. She is just she's like luminous in that movie. There's just something so beautiful about her. And
it's the lighting. It's whoever the lighting person was, because she was very luminous in the movie. I was like, oh, she's always beautiful, but in that movie, like it's like a brightness to her eyes.
You know, that magic moment when she first comes to life in the window.
Yeah,
that was what I wanted to capture, the essence of that and his reaction. And I just love that.
What's the matter? Don't you like your new scarf?
Not especially.
I'm a huge fan of Mannequin, so it was fun kind of rewatching it and experiencing that again. I'm like, okay, I remember this as a kid, and this is me as an adult watching it. And it was slightly different. I don't know if you had a different experience, Liz, when you were rewatching.
I did have a different. I did have a different experience. The movie came out when I was 11. I'm guessing I saw it a few years later when it was on VHS. and loved it. We eventually owned this VHS copy, and it was like a comfort watch. And I had no problem with anything in the plot. It all made sense. It was perfect. I wanted the song "Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now" to be my wedding song.
Love that. Yes.
It's a classic.
I was in love with the music and all that. And I rewatched it the other day on YouTube in 21 parts because you cannot find it anywhere, not even to like buy to stream.
I don't understand it. I'm like, kind of like, it's a classic.
We open in ancient Egypt, and Kim Cattrall is hiding from her mother. Kim Cattrall, her name is Emmy. Her mother wants her to marry a camel dung dealer, which apparently is as good as she could get.
And her mother is Cleopatra. Am I crazy? Is her mother Cleopatra? Wasn't that?
See, I never understood this. Like, if she's like this princess, why is she marrying a camel dung dealer?
I thought they were just a noble family. I didn't think there was any royalty involved. And it was basically like, hey, you're like in the upper echelon of society, but not high enough to get all the good picks if you don't act fast. So she's stuck with a camel dung dealer. So Emmy begs the gods to help her. And then poof, her body disappears. Her entire body disappears. And this is an issue for me later, okay, with the story.
But what was great with the poof is that we immediately cut to the cartoon opening credits, which to me is such a classic 80s thing. Remember how they do that? It was fun. I don't remember the song that they used for that, but I loved it because they were showing her throughout history as a cartoon. And I was like, oh, 80s.
The Go-Go's. Was it Belinda Carlisle's group?
Yes. I recognized Belinda Carlisle's voice. I don't know if it was her solo or was it her as, oh my God, what was the name of the group she was in?
I just got the Go-Go's in my head.
The Go-Go's, yeah.
Was it the Go-Go's? Yeah. I couldn't, like, I just thought maybe somewhere in the recesses.
No, you got it. You were able to pull that gem out from the back of your mind. Yes.
And then we cut from there to Philadelphia. And I was like, I totally do not recall this being in Philadelphia.
Yes.
I don't remember that at all.
Yes,
I think
do.
Part of it is because you're so used to movies being set in New York.
Yes, or Los Angeles. So I was like, Philadelphia. Who chose this location?
Yeah,
okay.
That was unnecessary. There really was. It didn't have to be. In Philadelphia, we're introduced to artist, aspiring sculptor Andrew McCarthy's Jonathan. Yeah. He works in a mannequin factory and he's building mannequins.
Yes, that is correct.
And
that is correct.
He's talking as a lover to the mannequin as he builds
which is kind of creepy.
Oh, it is creepy.
I mean, they could have made it into a horror movie if they
you can set this entire sequence to horror movie music.
Yes.
What would you say if I told you get more beautiful every day? Oh, what was that?
He's a stalker. Like later on, we find he's kind of a stalker, but he is like, but he was singing like "You've Got Sunshine" or something, right? It was a very cute, innocent song. He was singing.
It was an innocent song,
but he's kind of lovable in a very sort of like incompetent way.
Yes, that is a good way of describing him. So he gets fired from the job because he's not making mannequins fast enough because he's so in love with them. But this is what really gave me the creeps. Okay, so as if that whole situation wasn't disturbing enough, he works in his next job as a balloon artist at a kid's party dressed like a 1950s milkman.
This felt really sort of like out of left field, that whole scene.
It was, I think they added, because then there's kind of a montage of him starting random jobs and getting fired. I was like, oh, they inserted this randomly. But he's supposed to be cool because he drives a motorcycle, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think the whole thing was just set up to make you feel sorry for him. And you do, but at the same time you think, oh, gosh, really? Is he really this much of a,
Yeah.
What I find interesting about him, because he's clearly lost a lot of jobs, and then we go on to meet his girlfriend Roxie, who's like this high-powered woman at like, I don't know if it's like a marketing or ad agency or something.
Yeah, it's at the
like,
rival the other
at the rival shopping store, and it's like, why is she dating him? Like he's very attractive and he's light and fun, but she at some point she's just like, I think you need therapy.
He's like a little sad puppy, isn't he? You know, he's sort of left out in the rain, like. Because there's that one scene where he's literally looking at the mannequin through the window and it's raining, isn't it? And he just looks like a little sad puppy.
He does.
And you kind of like, you are really cute, but come on.
Not that cute. Not
hopeless. He's hopeless. But you're right. That's how it starts out. He's driving away from his girlfriend who kind of broke up with him in the rain, and he sees the mannequin in the window. He's like, oh, it's you. And it's like, he's really obsessed.
Yeah,
he's like a doll.
Yeah, I'm going to make a controversial statement, and I can support it with facts from the movie later on.
Okay.
Roxie is the sympathetic character in this movie. She is the one that I would love to hear her story. I was on her side most of the time, so I think Roxie is painted as the villain. She is not. She is a sympathetic hero.
You're supposed to hate her, aren't you? I mean, she's immediately like, even like the way she dresses, the way they've made her up, everything about Roxie. You're supposed to immediately hate her. She's coded, villain coded, like very.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I just get like a big sort of Alexis Colby vibe from her.
Yes,
like,
kind of.
Colby, but not at that level. You know, like she was aspiring to be like Joan Collins kind of character, and I can see what you're saying. I mean, she's just kind of like confused by a lot of what's going on, I think.
Yes.
And rightly so.
Yeah.
I mean, and when we first meet her, she's also, fending off the advances of Armand, her Italian colleague who just wants to have sex with her.
One thing about Armand, when I was rewatching the movie, he was something that I remembered, because I remember him as a kid. I remember his advances, and as a kid, I thought it was funny. As an adult, I find it a little different. But that was the one thing. Whenever he showed up, like, I remember him and him making these inappropriate comments all the time to his coworker.
I think I had a similar reaction to you, Tiffany, in that I thought when I was younger, when I first saw it, I was a kid and probably just laughed at him. But then when you watch it again through older eyes, it is like, whoa. Serious red flags.
Quite appropriate.
He's a walking red flag, that man. And
you
think, what was he thinking? Why is
he wasn't
the
thinking
whole
with
character doesn't. He's unnecessary for a start. I don't understand why he's even in. We don't need him in the movie.
I mean, it's supposed to be, I guess, comic,
comic relief.
They just use the characters rather than the plot for comic relief.
It sounds like we hate this movie, but
I know.
I do enjoy it though.
But it's only people who can love something that can tear it apart.
Yeah. It's true.
Which is
true. I mean, I listened to the SBH.
My parents.
I was going to say, it sounds a lot like a family, right?
Yeah, I know. They must really love me if they can break me down that much.
They're the only ones who can crap all over me. So Jonathan finds a job working in the stockroom at Prince Department Store because he saves the life of the store's owner, played by Estelle Getty. It was a very slapstick moment. The sign comes swinging. He's hanging on it.
It's almost like this movie doesn't know what it wants to be.
Yes.
That's my
It's a mix.
Yeah, it's got a big
yeah.
identity crisis,
Yeah.
this whole movie. It doesn't know whether it wants to be a rom-com, a comedy outright, a slapstick, a fantasy movie. It's like they just basically thought, well, we'll just take a bit of that and a bit of that and a bit of that. And we'll just smush it all together. And
it's a mix. I will want to do just a quick call out. The person, he does get the job because of the Golden Girl, but he first goes into David Spader's office. I'm sorry, oh my God, David Spader. he first goes into James Spader's office, and
Yes.
James Spader is playing this smarmy, like slick back,
he's
greasy
oily.
executive. Yeah. And he's
in this
smoking a
movie.
cigarette. And it's like, okay, that was the time, right? That was the time he's smoking a cigarette. Like, I guess I can help you.
Yeah. James Spader's Mr. Richards. I don't even think he has a first name.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's just Mr. Richards.
He's
Yeah.
Mr. Richards. He's the villain. And I loved every moment he was on screen. Every moment he was on
love
screen.
him, and I would love to see him and Roxie in a movie. I'd love him and
interesting.
Roxie
He
together.
and Roxie,
That'd
yes.
be a really interesting movie.
Yes. I would have, I was hoping that they would get together, but
Get together, yeah, because
know.
they seem quite perfect for each other. I thought.
alas, they did not. So we learn a little insight into James Spader's Mr. Richard. His villain is working with the rival department store Illustra, which is where Roxie works, and he wants to try to get Estelle Getty to sell Prince department store. So that's kind of the running thread throughout.
Can I just say Illustra? What a great name for a department store. I mean, it's so 80s. I love it.
It's got all the neon lights and stuff, like those fluorescent tube lighting in the store. Yeah. It's very like sharp and edgy, and it is
giving 80s. The whole thing. It's
very 80s. Right down to the gay men stereotypes.
Let's talk about Hollywood as a kid. And still as an adult, I know it's problematic. Yeah. I still love Hollywood. I remember as a kid those sunglasses and the outfits and like, you know,
I mean, he like basically steals the movie. It's his movie. I mean, I loved Emmy and Jonathan. I love everything about them and their relationship. I wish there was more of them falling in love, but he's problematic. Things he says and the way he's coded, but
he was amusing. He kept the story moving too.
He did. Yeah, and he had those snaps. He was like, and I remember those.
Very sharp snaps. He's the only character who makes it into Mannequin 2. So they knew that they had something good in his character. And you know, when you think of it, he was ahead of his time the way they wrote him, because he mentioned having had a like a long-term partner, you know. So I felt like there was some things about the character that was progressive and some that just set you way back.
Some things you could sort of think, well, he's kind of progressive. And the fact that they also had him as a black man, being a black gay man.
I
don't think the actor is gay. I'm not entirely sure, but
he's not.
No, but that to me seemed quite progressive for the 80s.
Yes, absolutely.
They were like, you know, he was a stereotype. But you didn't see many black men playing gay stereotypes.
Very true.
A lot of gay best friends, but not black gay best friends.
I enjoyed him, and not only did we get introduced to Hollywood, we also were introduced to like kind of the B plot storyline, or maybe it's a C plot at this point. The cop from Police Academy. I forgot what his name is.
I don't. Oh, in the movie, it's Felix.
Felix.
Felix. And the dog. What's the dog's name?
Rambo. Yes, it was Rambo. I remember the dog, and I remember when we first got introduced to him, I thought, were dogs allowed in malls back then with cops? I don't know if that was a thing.
I didn't.
I don't know if security guards were allowed to carry dogs back then. They might have.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another thing. You just kind of like, you just have to say, yeah, okay, I'll go with it. I think so many things in this movie that you just like, I'll go with it.
Yeah, you have to.
I think that should have been the title of the film, is just go with it. It's happening whether or not you want it to. Yeah. So Jonathan, because he can't stay in the stock room and not go to the mannequins, he finds, I don't know, mannequin parts, and he builds a mannequin. And then, you know, Hollywood runs into him, and Hollywood kind of takes him under his wing and is like, oh, you can help me out, whatever. And the minute Hollywood disappears, the mannequin, which is also fully dressed, comes to life. And it's Emmy. Okay. Yes. And this is where there's a little bit of her story, but it leaves so many questions. Emmy comes to life. And she says, you made this body so I could come to life. And I'm thinking, wait a second. Your body disappeared at the beginning. Shouldn't you still have that body? What happened to your body? And was your soul floating around? And then she says,
interesting.
And then she's like, oh, I'm 4,000 years old. And she mentions having spent time with Christopher Columbus and Michelangelo. And I'm
Yes.
thinking, did they have mannequins? And then her soul jumped into those mannequins?
I feel like Emmy is some kind of like entity where she can just take some kind of corporeal form or something. Like,
Okay.
I don't know. That's in my head canon. That's how the magic works. She just needs some kind of corporeal form to like
I
just
agree.
come alive.
So like Quantum Leap?
Maybe, or
Well, I don't think she's
because
leaping
like
into
you said-
bodies, but maybe into. But if it's Michelangelo, he was probably sculpting something, and maybe she.
Yeah,
became...
possibly. Maybe.
Oh,
she came
okay,
to
that
life
makes
from a
sense. But how about
sculptor.
Christopher Columbus? The masthead of his ship?
On the
Yes.
I don't know. I
He
mean,
wanted to travel. He was taking her to the West Indies, right? And it's just like,
okay, but what happened to her body that disappeared from the first scene?
yeah.
How did she lose her body?
I don't know, Liz.
I think
This
we
is
have
a
to
movie
ask the
about a
dog.
mannequin coming to life.
There's a huge plot hole, and I attribute that to all the cocaine being done in the 80s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the people
I think
writing
it
these
was.
movies.
I think you could see it in this movie. But he wakes up in the window, and everyone's like, "Oh, look at this window!" And he immediately runs and tells Roxy. He's like, "Roxy, I think I'm seeing things. The mannequin is alive." And she didn't believe him at that time.
She did not.
She did not believe him at that time. But what I thought was interesting is, like, I think after that conversation, he goes back to his apartment, and it's huge. It's the biggest apartment I've ever seen.
He's a like struggling artist, and he's got this most amazing apartment.
It's amazing.
He's got this amazing motorbike.
Yes, beautiful, huge apartment in Philadelphia. I was like, Jesus.
I mean,
like,
as far as I'm concerned, Jonathan is probably a trust fund kid or something.
Good point.
That's interesting.
I think he can probably go home to mum and dad if he really needs to. It just, I don't know. He comes across as like trust fund college kid who like dropped out early.
Oh, you think so? Oh, interesting. You have that backstory for him, because I was just like, oh, he's and the just watching it again now, it didn't even occur to me that his apartment didn't match what his earnings was. So
there's definitely something there. And Andrew, Jonathan, to me, like I feel quite like sort of connected to him in some ways, because he's like, he comes across as somebody possibly neurodiverse. I mean, this is how I read him. He comes across a little bit neurodiverse, and that he never quite sort of like completes his work, or he has the inspiration, but he struggles to put things into practice, and his timekeeping is poor, and all those kinds of things. With very organized.
That's interesting, because I think he says at one point, I've always been different, or my mom said I've always been different, or
So I personally do think he's neurodiverse. I mean, obviously not, they wouldn't have written him like that back then, because it just wasn't really talked about. But I can see a lot of myself in Jonathan in that respect, because I have ADHD. You've probably seen what I'm like on Twitter, constantly like all the ideas all the time, and it's really hard for me to put them into practice.
To
actually like finish projects. Like I'm constantly inspired, but it's really hard unless I find a muse to like help me finish. And I feel like she was his muse. He needed her to become that success, but it was always in him. So in a way, Mannequin is my muse to finish the book Boyfriend.
You're giving the movie so much gravitas in
which
the
it
description.
probably doesn't deserve.
No, why not? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, it means something to me on that level. Which I do love this movie, and I can understand Jonathan. I mean, he is very strange.
Yes, he is.
Don't get me wrong. He's very odd talking to like mannequins, and like he does come across like a little bit.
I'm so curious to know the director, like how he was directed. Was he making his own choice as a character, or was the director saying, hey, you have to look a little bit more awestruck and lost, and because there are times that his reactions seem a little bit over the top, given what's going on in the scene.
There's a lot that's over the top.
I like that. In the book, I wrote something, I can't remember the exact wording I used, but something about how in most stories where something fantastical happens, the characters seem to get over it in a hot minute. And I purposely included that, how Emmy, because of her her mental health with her schizophrenia diagnosis, and because she's had so much doubt put into
Right.
her head by everything that's happened to her with her past, with
Right.
her ex.
Yes.
I wanted to emphasize that with Emmy, that she kept questioning it. That she,
Right.
you know, it wasn't just one time that he appeared and she's like, oh no, this isn't real, this can't happen.
Yes.
So it took, you know, like Jonathan, I think, quite a while to actually convince her. And even then, even
Yeah.
halfway through, I think there were still moments where she doubted herself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she was very much sort of like, yeah, I'm just going to wake up, and realized I sort of like, you know, had one of my episodes again, and
Right.
I'm going to wake up in the hospital. And one of the things I wanted to do with Lizzie, without giving too much away, is sow that seed of doubt
Right.
throughout.
Yeah. There was some diabolical things going on over there.
I mean, somebody read an early copy and said to me, are we supposed to take away from this that he might not be real?
Oh, that's interesting.
And I said, in my mind, Jonathan is completely real. And in Emmy's mind, he's completely real, and he is real. But if the reader wants to take that away with them, then that's fine.
That's,
you know, I'm
right,
not going to
that's
say
okay.
you can't have that idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, he is real.
So Jonathan and Emmy begin creating these fabulous window displays for Prince Department Store. There's a tennis scene. There's riding bikes. I mean, I don't know where they were getting all these materials to create these.
There was like an engineer behind it, because that is not like a regular window dresser.
Yeah, even one involves the front of a bus. They're like, "Oh, we don't have much time. Let's build a bus."
Yeah, and
the
treadmill or something moving on the treadmill, and
they were moving on different things. So people flock to the window. They flock to the store, and now Prince is doing gangbusters sales, and they're not in danger of selling.
That is
so
correct.
Of course, James Spader, Mr. Richards, has to get more devious, working with Illustra. So he has Felix, the bumbling security guard, and Rambo the dog follow Jonathan around to see what he's up to, so they could get some dirt on him and get him out of the store. There is a music video-esque costume dance party montage of Emmy and Jonathan.
I love this part in the movie just because of how ridiculous it was. At one point, I guess he was kind of like Dick Tracy or something. And I was like, what? And then he was like Dracula in front of like a piano. And I was like, does that actually exist in that mall? What's happening?
It's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. And the bit where she does the lipstick and like the dancing and the
department.
I mean, I just love the way they danced together. I wanted more.
No, they danced really well together. They did.
Yeah, they did dance really well. I mean, I remember that being the favorite montage, of the movie for me. I enjoyed them dressing up and having fun. This is the point at which I noticed, for some reason, I don't know why, that Andrew McCarthy's Jonathan has been wearing red, black, and white bowling shoes for the entire movie.
Okay.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, it is. I was like,
oh
my God, they're bowling shoes. It's even in one of the movie posters. And from then on, I couldn't unsee it, and it was bothering me.
So wouldn't he be like slipping on the floors in the
You would think so. You would think so. It bothered me very much because I spun a narrative that he stole them from a bowling alley because he was poor. And I was like, oh, I don't know.
He probably worked at the bowling alley, was fired, and walked out in the shoes. And those are the shoes he could only afford.
And they cut that scene. That would make sense.
They cut it. That probably is they probably did cut it. We should research that. They probably did cut it. It's like at one point in the opening montage.
Sense.
Like, we need the deleted scene.
They probably burned all those. So at this point, we check back in with the rival department store Illustra, who James Spader is working with to steal, to make this deal go through where Illustra purchases Prince Department Store. And Roxie invites Jonathan to a restaurant because she wants to offer him a job and steal him away from the store. And I don't know. I thought he acted unnecessarily angry at her for her offering him to do this.
He was really like weirdly upset by being offered the job.
Yeah, and by this time they've broken up. But I mean, after all, he stood her up. He was in love with the mannequin.
And he was an hour late to lunch. At one point, she's like, oh, well, you're an hour late. And I was like, that's rude.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I overslept. And I'm like, this is why you guys broke up.
Diverse.
Right. Apparently the answer to his declining this opportunity was, hey, we got to get dirt on him and get blackmail pictures of him at night with this mysterious assistant.
The choices, the choices are very like suspect. It's like everyone sort of like has really odd agency in this movie.
It is. It's very weird what people would accept in this movie, because I think he leaves that meeting and then we see kind of more of a montage of him just going into rooms with the mannequin and like people at work giving him a knowing look of like, oh, he's in the woman's room with the mannequin, and it's like, what's happening here?
I don't know why we didn't see what was going on, because I was wondering.
I think they were having sex or they were making out or something.
I don't know.
Going into like closets into things and like, what else are they doing in there?
I admired that he didn't care. He was just living his bliss, and he didn't really care that everyone thought he was some kind of, mannequin perv, they were like, oh.
And they accepted it because he's a genius. He's a window dressing genius.
Yes, eventually he's promoted to vice president because his window displays are so brilliant.
And that was the other thing, like the whole sort of hierarchy of this store. Like they have like, it's one store. And they have a president and a vice president and a whole board.
The board of,
It is an old historical department store, but like, what's with the whole corporate setup here? It again, I just found weird. But
that's people in Hollywood who have never worked a corporate day in their life, imagining what it's like, and that's why all of our understandings was skewed on many things as kids, because we were seeing interpretations of people who had no experience doing any of this
working a real job, like oh, this is how it's done, okay. And now he's just vice president. When they made him vice president, I will say for a moment, as an adult, I was like, well, what about Hollywood? Hollywood has been at this store for years. During the window, why is he being looked over for?
Because he's a gay black man. That's why.
That was me getting upset. I was like, wait a second, this is what happens all the time in real life.
I'll be honest, I was mad too on many levels because of that. Yeah, I'm at a place in my life where that really bothered me.
That says more about us in our places. Like this is right.
I mean, he was basically the one who took Jonathan under his wing. To begin with.
Yes, and then Jonathan took his job, and I was like, this is real life.
And Hollywood seemed okay with it.
He was absolutely fine with it all. He was like, girlfriend, just click.
Roxie and the lecherous Armand are paired up to sneak into Prince's at night to get pictures of Jonathan with this assistant that they had heard of was his, I guess, his mysterious assistant helping him.
This is like, again, like where the lack of agency, I just don't understand. Like, why is Roxie so determined to do this? Like, why is she like even saying,
I think it's personal.
Because she was offered a promotion earlier on in the movie. She was offered
I can't work out what Armand's getting from it. I mean, he's probably thinking, I mean, is he just doing this just to get in Roxie's knickers?
Yes.
It's like
in short, yes, that is that's all he's about, this man.
Everyone's goals are really sort of like super like they're not very nuanced.
I will say, like during that scene at one point, speaking of Armand, I think something happens where he's like, do you want me to show you something in your size? And he unzips his pants. I was like, this is such classic 80s.
But I have to say his delivery of it, I completely didn't expect that line to come out of his mouth. I thought it was funny. I did chuckle.
All of his lines were very funny. Yes, he had all those kind of lines. They were hilarious.
He basically had a really bad character and he played him so well.
He did. He made a meal out of it. He made a meal out of that character.
I think at some point she's in the swimsuit and she's like, we put some sunblock on me or some sun lotion on me or something. And I thought you're inside of a store. Like, this is ridiculous.
That's just code for like it was
like rub my body.
She just wanted him to touch her.
I took issue with that. I was like, come on.
I took it that this was an experience she had never had, is having someone rub suntan lotion. So she was like, I want to experience that.
Sort of like, my sort of biggest issue with Emmy, as much as I love her, is that she's basically like saying, oh, I've done this and I've done that and I've seen so much, and then she's content to just be like, dressing department store windows with Jonathan.
Right. Which makes
I
it like
know.
that's all women ever want is to just be under a man's thumb.
That's why it's better to watch these movies when you're kids, because as a kid, you're not thinking about that. You're like, this is exciting. And that's so silly. As an adult, we're like, this is inappropriate.
No, you're right. You're right.
Honestly, better. She's a smart woman.
That's why part of me didn't want to rewatch this movie when I was there. It's like, I kind of don't want to rewatch it and just go by memory.
Yeah. You have to switch off when you watch it, I think. You have to just basically just go with it.
Again, the working title of this movie was probably Just Go With It. So she gets rubbed down on suntan lotion, and then Emmy and Jonathan are rolling around or hugging on a beach blanket, and Felix, the security guard, walks in. So she becomes a mannequin because she already said, nobody can see me.
That's true.
As a human, but you, Jonathan. So then pictures are taken of him rolling around in a loving embrace with a mannequin in a bathing suit.
Yes.
Felix is just repulsed. Rambo apparently is traumatized by being near a mannequin, and he gets retired at some point, and another dog is brought in,
replaced by a German Shepherd.
Yeah,
like poor Rambo.
I know.
Yes. He's got PTSD. That dog.
I will say they did take good shots of that dog. That dog gave good reaction shots.
He did.
I bought it. I was like, oh.
After everyone leaves and Emmy comes back to life, they're chatting, and I guess this is the moment we're supposed to believe, okay, now they've fallen in love and they're committed, because he says, should we name our first child Pinocchio? I was like, okay, I guess you guys
he was just joking. I think he was just joking around.
But I think but it was so random. I was like, oh, that's supposed to be us thinking, okay, now they're together for sure. They're in it to win it.
And eventually, I think they decided to go out on the town to celebrate. And Nafton's just like, I'm going to just let my freak out. I'm going to go out on my motorcycle with a mannequin on the back, and I'm going to drive through town. And then Roxie sees him, and then you see the I love the shot of the mannequin.
That's one of my favorite, when he says the mannequin.
Jonathan, you're riding around town with a mannequin on the back of your motorcycle. What is wrong with this picture?
Oh, right. You two haven't met. Roxie, this is Emmy. Emmy, Roxie.
Nice to meet you. Oh my God, what am I saying?
This scene with Roxie, confronting him on the motorcycle with mannequin Emmy, I was like, I'm so on Roxie's side. What's wrong with this picture? And Andrew McCarthy just never, he's like, you just don't understand. You don't understand me.
You don't get me.
You don't get me. It's like, no,
we don't understand.
And I'm glad I don't understand. Of course it's a romantic ride. She does come to life once they drive away from people.
And they drive through, no offense, but Philadelphia doesn't seem that romantic.
No,
I would
it's
say
not.
no, it's not.
No, it's not.
He goes in a romance movie. It's not very inspiring for the first motorcycle ride.
Yeah, I don't even know if they shot it in Philadelphia. I'm guessing they didn't.
They do the motorcycle ride at the same time. Roxie gave Armand a chance, and apparently he couldn't get it up. I don't know.
Yes.
Something happened.
They had hate sex or attempted to. I felt bad for her because he blamed her for not being able to perform. He's like, you're so cold. That's why. I was like,
that's why you got a dummy. I was like, what? Come on.
Yeah.
They're afraid of powerful women.
That's right. That's why
all these men are afraid of powerful women, so they get mannequins.
So they get Yes. Oh boy, we could go deep into this, man. We could go deep into this.
That's like what we're going to take away.
Yes, that's what we're going to take. He's like, I made you, you owe me. And she's like, oh yeah, I'll do whatever you want. But
I will say
like Roxie just never gets anything, does she? That she wants in this movie. And like you say, you have to feel quite sorry for her because she's disappointed all the way through.
Yes. Agreed.
She is. They leave the motorcycle ride. They go back. They have a wonderful night together. Emmy goes to hide in the window to get ready. And that's when James Spader and the cop come up and they start just kidnapping female mannequins. They're like, I don't know what she looks like. Let's take this one and this one. And they took her.
James Spader and Felix stealing all of the female mannequins adheres to the horror trope that once you have sex, something bad is going to happen.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like so Jonathan and Emmy have sex in a tent display
Yes.
in the department store. Then they're naked in a hammock and on a bearskin rug. They just kept moving.
Yes.
And then she gets stolen.
I didn't understand is that he'd taken her out on his motorcycle. So why didn't he just take her back to his really nice apartment to have
because
sex?
they have to put her in the window the next morning.
But they could have finished and gone back to the department.
You know what? Because once he takes her out of the department store, it's like the illusion, the dream is broken. It's like he wanted to stay in this reality he could control. He wanted to control the reality.
Was the department store.
Yes.
And I admit I am guilty of that because I made my Jonathan and Emmy's bubble, the shop, the bookshop.
Yeah, but it made sense.
Ventured out like that one time, and that was me again cribbing something from Mannequin.
See, I want to see that. I want to read that type of insular kind of forced proximity. But in a movie, you want to see more stuff going on.
I think in a movie, it needs to be in a romance movie, especially a rom-com. I think you need a bigger scope.
Yes, for sure.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But in a book, I think that sort of, like you said, the forced proximity and that whole sort of like push together and like the intimacy of it really works.
So we see she's stolen away. Eventually, Jonathan is woken up to a crowd of really impressed, I don't know, I guess people in the store like clapping, like, your window is amazing. I'm thinking all the mannequins were stolen, so I don't know how it's amazing, but that's fine.
Where did the mannequins?
Because he got laid.
They weren't clapping because he got laid. I thought they were clapping because he's a fantastic window dresser. Or
but there was nothing in the window.
Yeah, but this is again like, what were they clapping for?
Maybe what were they clapping for then?
I don't understand.
Which is weird because they've all been like listening in on him for like ages.
I don't know.
Fooling around with the mannequin. So
that is. I assume they were clapping because of the window, but then there were no women in the window. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. Either way, one of my favorite parts of the movie coming up, that's when Hollywood reveals that all the women were stolen. And then they jump in Hollywood's pink Cadillac. I still remember that from a kid.
Yeah,
which he keeps covered up.
Which they drive this huge pink Cadillac, which he gets out of and covers in a polka dot car cover. I was like, this is amazing.
They stayed on that. We had to see him cover up that car.
But I remember it. Even now, years later, I remember that pink Cadillac. I remember him. Yes.
It
stands out.
We really needed just a movie about Hollywood.
Yes.
I know, that's right.
We
that's
did.
The movie we really need.
I wanted the story because every now and again he let us into the drama going on in his home life. And I was like, I want to see that movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
But how did they know? How did Jonathan and Hollywood know to run to Illustra? How did they figure out that they had?
I think because I don't know. Did they ever see that James Spader and Felix were following him? Did they see him on the motorcycle?
Oh, did they? Maybe
I thought they saw him because Kim Cattrall gave them the middle finger at some point. So I think they saw it.
But she was stolen. How could she have told them, hey, they've been following us?
Well, I'm assuming she told him at some point they were following us. And so maybe he just knew because since that other mall was trying to hire him that they took him.
I guess
there's a lot of leaps that you have to make.
That was a big leap. But and you know what? That's why they spend so much time on covering the car in the car. So we forget that there's no reason why they should know that the mannequins are there.
I love that. He goes there and he confronts Roxie, like, what did you do with her? What did you do with my mannequin?
Poor Roxie. Again, I kind of feel for her.
I know.
He's obsessed about this mannequin, not that they broke a relationship. Oh.
Yes.
And Roxie decides, I'm gonna
she says,
kill
you will never see her again. And she walks off in her little way.
Where is she?
Forget it, you're never gonna see her again.
Roxie, where are you going?
Listen, we also have a very nice profit sharing plan.
Switcher, with extreme.
Roxie's just at that point. I think she's got she's got zero, left to give, hasn't she?
She's got 0 F's to give. And she's like, I'm going to shred all these mannequins in a huge mannequin-sized shredder machine that we keep in the basement.
Yeah, I love that. I love that scene, though, because for some reason she goes to this base. She knew it existed, apparently.
And
they obviously shred a lot of mannequins there.
Yeah, a lot of mannequins.
Do it all the time.
You have this I guess energetic chase scene through a mall where he's like he's somehow managing to take down 10 cops. I don't know how that's possible. He's just a regular person.
Yeah, like crawling underneath like the
Yes.
counters and then Hollywood appears with the hose and
just hosing them down.
Can I just say the Hollywood hose thing? I also remember as a kid, he had so many one-liners. He's like, these are the two things I like to do: fight and kiss boys. And he's like, this is what it's like. This is what it's like being a man, and mine is bigger than yours. There were so many one-liners during that one line.
He had so many zingers. They were all zingers.
Yeah,
it was great.
It was a bit over the top, like wacky. I wonder though if that was improv. That might have been him just throwing stuff out.
What I find with Mannequin is that it feels to me very nostalgic, like an old slapstick sort of like 1950s comedy.
For sure.
It feels like it could have been something like Katharine Hepburn and James Stewart.
You imagine? Yeah.
Yes. No, for sure. Yeah.
It felt like that's the tone they were going for, but I don't know if they hit that.
No, they didn't hit it.
What they wanted to get.
Yeah,
that
you can't
like the whole bringing up baby with the leopard and just the whole strangeness of everything that they were going for.
If that's what they wanted, they had to go all in and not make it half of that and half of this.
Yeah,
like, they had to just do one thing. So the mannequins, it's kind of a suspenseful moment, and I remember watching it as a kid and being like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? So you see the mannequins dropping one by one. Emmy is approaching.
Up until the point with the shredder, the stakes were super low. Like he's got to make do the windows.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
He really upped the ante with the whole like, oh, Emmy's life is in danger,
life or death.
It came out of nowhere, but you actually do really buy into it. That point, I did anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, because of how well that scene is performed, I think by Andrew McCarthy, you feel what he's feeling at that point, and you can sort of understand his urgency and his sort of panic, and then like the moment, like the hand, and like
I will say that moment when she came alive in my mind, and as a kid I remember thinking she's probably a lot lighter as a mannequin. Like I don't know, when she's an actual human being, that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of weight.
I didn't think of that.
No, I thought about that as a kid and as an adult. I thought, no, this is more dangerous.
Yeah, the laws of physics would mean that it would be easier to pull her up as a mannequin.
Yes,
definitely.
absolutely. That's
right. That's a good point.
But because she turned into a human being, the janitor who's watching randomly by the side, that's the moment he took. He's like, I guess I should turn off the button. Like she's alive now.
And then he goes digging for his own mannequin to kiss.
Yeah, he's watching this whole thing unfold, and he's sort of like not quite understanding why this guy is so panicking about a mannequin.
And she's like, oh, they can see me, so we're supposed to believe that whatever this spell was is broken.
And we don't know. I don't really understand how the how and the why is never explained there. That was something I grappled with in the book Boyfriend, because I didn't want it to be too easy at the end. And you know, I mean, I don't think I'm giving anything away. It's a romance. It's happy ever after. So I don't think that's a spoiler to say that he's real at the end and comes to life. But I felt like it had to be earned. I hope the reader, when they feel it, really feels that peril, and that when he does come back to life, when things work out, that it's not just, oh, they can see me.
Yes, she becomes alive and he introduces her to everyone. It's like, look, this is her. She's been alive all along. And then they get married in the window display.
I thought that was cute. I thought that was a fantastic ending.
It was a cute ending.
You know, was the one that was giving, you know, officiant. And I thought it was a cute ending for me.
I think it's really cute, but at the same time, I kind of hope they had another ceremony. You know, not just in the window of a department store.
Okay, because
again, just going back to that whole sort of like their bubble, and I feel like, you know, like maybe you need to like be escaping your bubble together a little bit.
Maybe you should see what life is like outside of the mall, in the window.
And not just on a bike ride around Philadelphia. You know, like maybe we could have seen them go away.
I would have liked to see one more scene where they're maybe traveling together to Egypt or doing something fun, because I just thought,
like going back to Egypt, like just so she could show him her history. That would be that to me would have come full circle.
Yeah. Kim Cattrall was 30 years old when she played Emmy in Mannequin.
That's interesting.
Andrew McCarthy, how old do you think he was?
Wasn't he about 22 or 23?
24.
Ooh.
24.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
And I felt it. There was a few
really-
times I'm like, she seems so much more mature than him.
Well, that's
just,
why.
you know, yeah.
But that's super interesting because it's not something that Hollywood does these days.
That's
Yeah.
actually true.
Like the
That's a
older
good
man.
point. That's interesting. That's a very
They
good
cast
point.
older men with like younger female
Yeah.
love
Oh, yeah.
interests. And it's something that perhaps Hollywood can learn from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
very
they look
interesting.
great. They did look great together. I mean,
Yeah.
Andrew McCarthy does have a baby face anyway, so he looks younger than
does.
everyone, doesn't he? Like, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, she did look older, but she looked fabulous.
Oh yeah. Oh, she's gorgeous. So here's another fun fact. Mannequin did receive 1 Oscar nomination.
Whoa.
Was
For
it
what,
the
music? The
soundtrack?
song?
So
Was it the song?
So it was for best song for Starship's Nothing Gonna Stop Us Now.
Fantastic
Yeah.
song.
The tune became a Billboard #1 single by April 1987, but it ultimately lost the Academy Award to
Who?
what song? Dirty Dancing. I've had the time
Oh,
of my
that's
life.
right.
Same year,
Oh my
87.
goodness. That's
Yeah,
a tough
same year.
category.
1987. What a year
Yeah.
for music.
Hollywood doesn't seem to make fantasy rom-coms anymore.
No,
And I miss
That's true.
them.
they
Yeah.
don't.
I feel like they're missing out on something because like fantasy romance and witchy romance especially is
Mhm.
having a real moment.
Yes.
The last fantasy or witchy kind of like romance was perhaps Practical Magic, possibly.
Kate and Leopold one. That was actually kind
That
of
was
like,
magical. That was a
that was
time.
magical.
That's
I
true.
have to admit, I did crib some Kate and Leopold in this as well.
I love that movie.
It's from the past. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another movie I love, but there's some holes.
Yeah, but it's very much, I feel like people don't know it very
Well,
well.
They
that's
don't.
because that genre is reserved for like Hallmark, right? For the Hallmark type movies. There's a lot of Hallmark movies where
Yeah.
there's magic and fantasy and things coming
Yeah,
alive.
I mean the only one that I've seen recently was Netflix did one, didn't they? The Night Before Christmas
Oh,
with
yeah.
Yes.
Vanessa
I
Hudgens.
I saw that. Yes. Actually, that
Yeah.
was pretty good. That was pretty
And I
good.
remember that came out when I was just querying the book boys.
Oh,
then.
that's
Oh, get
interesting.
out.
It's great.
And I was sort of like really excited to see it because I thought, well, I could use it as a comp, but then I
Yeah.
thought at the same time, like, well, people think I've like sort of nicked
taken
the
it.
idea from
Not
that.
a double-edged sword. You don't know, right?
Do you remember there's a photo, it's quite a famous sort of meme now of Henry Cavill on a red carpet with Jason Momoa behind him, sneaking up on him.
Oh, I think so.
I
That sounds
actually don't
familiar.
recall.
Hands.
Okay.
Henry's got his hands in his pocket and he looks sort of like he's got his suit on
Yeah.
and he kind of looks like immaculate. And Jason's there with the golden retriever like coming in energy, like sort of like it's creeping up on him behind. That whole photo, that whole image to me looks perfect for a Mannequin remake.
Oh, interesting. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Jason's going to be like the aspiring artist.
Okay.
I can see that with Jason.
Oh,
And
I
Henry's like the perfect mannequin.
He is the
And I
perfect
want
mannequin.
that. And
I
I
will say
want
that.
that like male mannequin remake so much.
I
I'm
would so be
desperate
down
to
for that.
see it.
I would. That's something I would watch him in. I would watch him in that.
Would
That's
it
exciting.
involve time travel? Would it involve time travel or?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. We need the fantasy aspect, don't we? We need that magical aspect somewhere. And I just think it would be so fun to see these two manly guys like in that romantic kind of like, and it could be super funny and campy and everything. I feel like they could have a lot of fun with it.
What would you name the Mannequin remake, Gina, with Jason Momoa and Henry
Oh my
Cavill? What would you
gosh.
name that?
Oh, well, it would have to just be Mannequin,
Yeah.
but with the emphasis on man.
Mannequin. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I
So
love it. I love it. I love it.
The other one I want is where I have a load of movies that I want Henry Cavill to be in. Basically, I want a remake of Weird Science.
Oh, I love that
Who
movie.
is he? He'd be the
the perfect guy creation that
Okay.
two nerds create. But instead of two geeky guys, I want STEM teenage girls.
Oh, I like the idea of that plot.
Hollywood, come on, call me.
I love that. You've got to write that book, even if it's just like a novella.
I like
do
that
the
one.
Weird Science remake, and then we can pitch it. Me and Tiffany will pitch it to Hollywood.
I like it. I like that one.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jeanna. This has been a delight.
You're welcome. I've loved every minute.
In the words of Emmy, played by Kim Cattrall, to Jonathan, played by Andrew McCarthy, nothing could ever be better than being here with you.
Oh, that's lovely.